welcome back to the Compliance Kitchen. Today let's take a look at a recent guidance that was issued by UK's OFSI, or the Office of Financial Sanctions Implementation. They published this guidance fairly recently, and it is specifically addressing international NGOs and those in the financial sector with information on counterterrorism legislation, sanctions, export controls, and related regulations that may be relevant to those in the financial sector, and also to the international NGOs delivering humanitarian assistance and development help in high-risk jurisdictions. The guidance also answers several frequently asked questions, and this version of the guidance has updates on the changes that were made to provide for new requirements and updated policies in the counterterrorism legislation and sanctions. This includes revisions to the sanctions and export control sections of the document itself, following the introduction of the UK's new sanctions framework under the Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2018. And the document also now includes a section on the designated area offense, following the introduction of the offense in the Counter-terrorism and Border Security Act of 2019. So in the UK, the counterterrorism sanctions and export control legislation and implementation is owned and managed by several different government and public agencies. So the guidance tells us that the Home Office is responsible for most counterterrorism legislation and policy. Then there's the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, or FCDO, which is responsible for the UK's sanctions policy and efforts to counter terrorism globally. Her Majesty's Treasury, or HMT, through the Office of Financial Sanctions Implementation, or OFSI, is responsible for the implementation and enforcement of financial sanctions in the UK, as well as domestic counterterrorism sanctions legislation. And then there's the Department for International Trade, or DIT, which is responsible for the UK's trade policy. This includes ownership of export controls, export licensing, and implementation of various trade sanctions. Then you have the Charity Commission for England and Wales. This is an independent government department that regulates charities in England and Wales, as the name suggests, and maintains the public register of charities. And then you have operational partners such as the police, the National Crime Agency, the UK Financial Intelligence Unit, and so forth. And then there's the Crown Prosecution Service, which prosecutes criminal cases that have been investigated by the police and other investigative organizations in England and Wales. So you have a host of different agencies that all implement or control or own, if you will, these UK anti-terrorism or counter-terrorism sanctions, export controls, legislation, different regulations, and so forth. The guidance then proceeds to look into different topics, such as the sanctions, right? Since they're talking about the UK sanctions, the designated entities, export controls, trade controls, transit controls, extraterritorial jurisdiction and prosecution, designated area offense, kidnap for ransom, withdrawal of financial services, and so forth. So if you guys are doing business with the UK, or you are an NGO, or are in the financial sector, this might be of interest to you. And on compliancekitchen.com, I have the guidance, or I have the link to the guidance, so you don't have to hopefully look very hard if you want to go through the entire document.